Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor is Virtual Synergy Inc. If you could free up hours in your day without sacrificing productivity, successful entrepreneurs, what if you could free up hours of your day without sacrificing productivity? Successful entrepreneurs know the secret. They delegate. If you're looking for an employee to handle your administration, there's no better employee than a virtual assistant from Virtual Synergy Inc. Virtual Synergy Inc. connects you with skilled human virtual assistants who handle your admin work, emails, and scheduling so you can focus on what truly matters, growing your business. Andy, how are you doing today?
Well, you gotta add me as a
All
speaker.
righty.
You
So
gotta add me as a
we
speaker
are
first.
going to see
Click the
about what
button.
everybody's building with AI today. I am doing a whole bunch of different things. I've been building AI agents like mad, and
Click,
I'm trying to turn different kind of concepts into
click.
agents. So I have
Hey,
agents for very specific
while we're doing that, John has to
actions.
enable me as
So
a
I've
speaker
created
on the
three
on
agents,
the
kind of a
site.
workfo for
And as soon as
first
he adds me as a
principles.
speaker, then I can talk to
First to
John as
break
well.
things down, and then to reform them, and then to test. And actually, I yesterday when I was working on this project, I was getting it to use synthetic data to test various uh, projects, hypotenuse, whatever you want to call it, and it's working really well. I was very surprised. I was very happy with it. And let's see. Oh, here, that's what the problem. I'm trying to get. There we go. Apologies. And let's see if I can get this going here. Andy, how are you doing? You're the speaker now?
Yep, I'm a speaker. You should be able to hear me now, so that's a good thing. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. And let me and I put
So I've clicked on the 4050 to do the co-hosting, and then we'll you gotta. I'll wait till mine didn't show up yet. So
I think you have to drop down for I can't co-host you while you're the speaker.
yes, you can. I
All
can
right,
do it.
here, let me
I'll
see.
give it. I'll give it a shot. Let's see. Click here. Remove from speakers.
I invited you as co-host. Let me see. Here we go. Did you get the co-host invite? Andy, did you get the invite I sent?
I did get the co-host tonight. Sometimes X Spaces has some strange things. So for the live stream, you'll be seeing that I'm clicking on stuff. You can't see the other screen, but I've got another screen. No. So
Alrighty, we're
I'm
still
talking
doing
on the
some
live stream. I'm going to
internal
go back
workings.
and show the
Guru
regular
Donna,
screen.
how are you
So
doing?
we've
It's
only
good
got a
to
few
see that
people
you're
joining
here.
today. We've had some
Andy,
issues
I
with
sent
my
you
accounts
a
and some other
co-host
things in the last few
invite.
days, but we're
If it's
fixing
not
that.
working, then I
We
guess we can just try
piece
the
by piece
speaker.
we're doing all those things.
Let's see. Sent it again. I sent the invite, and hopefully that works. Well, it looks like Andy had to drop out for a minute, so he's going to pop back in, I'm sure. And there was definitely some noise there for a minute, which was, let's see, here we go.
Well,
There you are.
okay. Now I'm in. I had to drop the space and then come back. So while obviously when we have some changes around in my accounts and things, obviously everybody doesn't get the same alerts. If you're listening to the replay or watching the live stream, make sure that you log in, click on my new account, click on the alerts while I'm still working in the background to try to recover control of my previous account. But it's moving right along. We've got a number of interesting things happening. I don't want to talk about it today. Let's talk about AI and how we're using AI in business. And what are you building? So, John, I know you're in the AI, the tech in schools class. So am I. I'm doing it to watch and learn. You're doing it to build stuff. What when you're done with this particular set of stuff they're teaching us, what do you want to do? I mean, tell us what you want to build.
I mean, what we have a guest coming tomorrow who is building basically a managed hosting system for AI agents. And so I'm looking to have something like that. Today I posted actually something with this company that has an open source that's an AI agent platform, and I think that's what's coming down the pike. And so and they're somewhat agentic. So I mean, what I'm hoping to do is, or what I actually I have the agents that do so I have proof of concept. So I've built agents that create content that's 95% human, uh, that tests 95% human, that can distribute it to for multiple things. I have an agent that will take uh, transcripts and turn them into newsletters or this, that, or the other thing. That I also have agents that will go online and check websites and give analyses of what they're doing and what they do well and what they don't do well and all this other stuff. And so basically, I'm just trying to turn all my workflows into agents and and then I
Yeah,
have
I'm doing the exact same thing, right? So as the work that we're doing, I'm looking to change the manual inputted stuff that I'm doing and turning it into workflows or agentic. Oh, hey, Katherine's joined. Katherine was one of the first guests on the show. She's from Estonia. She's works with. She got promoted actually to being like the AI guru for her whole division. Katherine, if you're listening, we would love to hear you. Give us an update of what you've been doing, what's going on recently. And I've invited all of the people here to speak, so feel free to grab the mic, accept that. We would love to talk to you about things. Otherwise, you just hear, Andy and John. And we're entertaining and fun, and that's totally fine if you just want to listen. But we would love to engage with you more than just, just going back and forth between John and I. So feel free to grab the mic and share with us what you've got going on. So one of the things, yeah, go ahead, Guru.
Yes, hi. John, I want first of all know, are you here every day and what hour?
Yes, we're here at this hour every day, which is 12 to 1 noon Pacific time. So John and I live in California, so we do this at our lunch hour. Wherever you are in the world, we're very grateful that you join us.
Oh, great. So I will be joining more often then because I wasn't sure when are you on. Okay, wonderful. Well, I have been using ChatGPT with helping me writing a book. It's very interesting. I set myself up to write every day 10 pages. I said, all right. So, and then I would write and I would ask ChatGPT to let me see what kind of point of view would ChatGPT put. And it was very interesting, actually. It did not interfere with my creative process, but in fact, inspired me to write more. Usually I wouldn't write 10 pages a day, like I would write few pages. But I was set up to finish a book in, let's say, 3 months. So it's very interesting so far. I was just wondering, do you have any other AI that you can maybe recommend me for creative writing?
Oh, there's a lot of them. So so perplexity.ai searches the current internet. So you can use it for finding search current current news, current information. But Claude.ai by Anthropic, Claude will write for you very well. It uses the Mistral backend, and it's really good for coding and writing. There's also the Llama series ones, like from Meta or Facebook, and you can access them in lots of different ways. There's all of the Google tools, which are called usually Gemma or Gemini. So you can get the Google tools; they will write for you as well. And then, of course, Anthropic. Of course, you have OpenAI. And just a second, I'm grabbing my other tool, and let me find out one more thing. Okay, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, and DeepSeek, and then Grok. Obviously, Grok, if you're on X, you can get access to Grok. And then there's a number of other ones which you can search for them, but Pi and Poe and a number of other kind of unique independent LLMs that will do certain writings. You can also download, if you have a computer, LM Studio, which is a free, basically it's a framework for a development environment or a chat environment. And you can download various versions of open source LLMs and run them locally on your machine. Now, depending on how fast your machine is, whether you have big, graphical cards or whatever, it might be slower, might not be as reasoning as high, but there is that option as well if you have a slow internet connection. But in addition to that, each one of them has their strengths and weaknesses, and each one of them has what they call a context window, or the total number of tokens you can input for it to process and think about, and then output for it to produce. And it's roughly the size of a chapter or less. So you can input, let's say, a 30 or 40 line outline of what you want to write about. And then it can write about enough content to fill up about maybe a full chapter of a book, maybe partial chapter of a book. It's hard for it to capture consistency in thought, but one of the things that I've done to help with the writing is that I've created a style, for lack of a better term, a style guide. Here's how you write, here's the inputs, here's how the output should be forced. And you need to use the 4 frameworks that we use for writing or for all of the AI stuff, which is give it a role, tell it what you want it to do. Usually I give it a role, act like a New York Times bestselling author and writer and editor. Your objective is to create a chapter, one chapter of a 25 chapter book. The format is going to be output like this. And then here's what I want you to talk about. Here's the list of topics and here's the things. Please, and then create the format. Produce as if it's a finished product of blah, 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 blah. And then before that, you can say, act as a writer, but you can say, act as this writer, and then you can give it a definition. Steinbeck wrote differently than Hemingway. You can say, write like Steinbeck, or write like Robert Kiyosaki, or write like Andy, right? Write like John Carlos. You can pick whatever you want. So there's some ideas to help you with thinking through how to use the tool to produce content for you.
How about be very unique and say, write like Guru Dana?
I'm sorry. I didn't quite understand your question. Maybe you should ask me again.
Right, like Guru Dana. So in other words, how
okay
to write.
Yes, so Guru Dana, you can totally do that. What you do is you, since you have an X account, you can load it with the things that you've written, or you can copy and paste a PDF or copy and paste a block of text and say, use this as an example. This is how I write. Give me a list of definitions of what that is like, and then use that definitions or the inputs or both is the better way to do it. Say, this is
Well,
how I write.
I have a book on Amazon, so I'm not sure if AI can actually relocate that book and can actually,
Maybe.
yeah, I don't know.
But did you produce any excerpts? Or, I mean, you could probably go on Amazon and grab the first 3 chapters or the first 3 or 4 pages.
Okay. I
It,
see
it,
what you mean.
it doesn't need everything to get a sense of the how you write, the pace, the grade level of reading, the vocabulary, the drive, the energy. It doesn't need the whole entire book to get that. It can do that in 3 or 4 or 5 pages. It probably could do a pretty good job in 3 or 4 paragraphs.
The idea is to leave my own intuitive print. I'm not sure, mind print, I wouldn't say that, but my own print in AI world, not like write like anybody else. I don't want to copy myself. No, I want to stay as unique as possible. And this is whole idea about creative writing.
I would describe that as your unique voice. When you are telling a story, it's your voice telling the story. If I told the same story, it would sound different. But when it comes from you, it's your voice. So think about telling the LLM, create a description of my voice, what I say, how I say it, what I'm trying to what I'm trying to generate and come across. And then that can give you the way the LLM thinks or processes how you speak. And then that, in other words, use the LLM to translate how you speak into instructions, so you can give it the instructions and say, yeah, do this more. Does that help you, Guru Dana?
Yeah. I think it's very important, this beginning phases of AI, that creative writers keep their own creativity, even though it helps us with the writing and maybe the speeding it up, because I was procrastinating for years.
Yes, but just remember that at one point, we only had a harp and a flute and a drum that we would bang on. And now we have violins and violas and cellos and basses, just to pick the stringed instruments, and guitars and electric basses and mandolins and ukuleles and all kinds of things in that space. No one ever said the musician had to choose one of the tools to produce the music. The music comes from your heart and from your hands. It doesn't come from the instrument. The instrument is just the tool that we use to express ourselves. I mean, put Itzhak Perlman on a cello and Yo-Yo Ma on a violin, they're still awesome, because they're the artist is who provides it. The instrument is just the tool. And so think of LLM not as the answer, but as the tool that you as the artist use to produce the content. And then I think you'll have a better chance of producing stuff you like.
How can AI then help me promoting my book? Let's see, I have a book that I have been published for a while, but it doesn't sell unless I do promotion. I promote, basically, I do public speaking and I do book signing.
So AI is really great for strategic planning, because you can, Grok is really good, and you can set Grok up like, Lloyd was talking about how a lot of these are basic agents, but you can tell Grok, go and research the best self-published book promotional or the most successful campaigns, and then give me a report on them. And so it can find, it can go on the internet and find those campaigns, give you a report, and then you say something like, please identify what you think are the most important nodes or parameters or factors for those campaigns to be a success, and then red team your findings. In other words, challenge your findings, and then reanalyze what's red teamed, and then create an output, and then give me a step. Then, based on what you found to be the best procedure to create a self published campaign for selling a book, give me a step by step guide of exactly what I need to do and benchmarks so we can make sure that it is done properly, and we can measure it as it goes on, or something to that effect. And and ask Rock, like, what is there a way to make a good, is there a standard way for a book sale campaign to go? And would it be currently, based on what my subject is, would it be best to promote it on X or Facebook, or how, or what do you think is the best promotion based on successful campaigns in the past? Does that help at all?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So you kind of, you want to ask it questions so you can drill down on it giving you information, and then you think of it as a collaborator, and then be like, based on my questions, what am I missing? Please challenge my questions. Am I totally off? Is there something that I'm asking that is important, or are there huge things that I'm missing? To try, the goal is to use my time as effective as possible to get this outcome. Am I even in the right area with my questions? Please challenge my assumptions, and then create an output. And so, and it's a process. The idea that you're going to press a button on one of these things and get a really refined outcome out of one prompt, I don't think is very uh is very realistic. Most likely it's a series of prompts and a series of questions to really refine the output so you can kind of really drill down. But it's always good to ask, and then once you get to kind of something that feels good, and you can then take it from Grok to Chat GDP, and then you ask for a very distinct, clear step-by-step guide on how to do it, and then and say, and in this process, please let me know how to leverage AI to get the most out of this campaign, or what have you. Does that help?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, thank you very much for your input. It feels like I need to engage AI in a way that AI engages in my mind process, what I really want, and in a way provoke AI to do a research to help me what I really need to accomplish.
Yeah. I mean,
If you're not sure where to go, ask AI, how do I get to this objective? So if you know where you want to end up, that's the best way to talk to one of the AI, any one of them, and say, I'm trying to reach this thing. I'm here. Like, I want to sell more books. I already have one. It's already posted and published in Amazon. It's available. What are the things I can do to sell more books? And then ask it, ask me any questions that you need in order to give me a good answer. And then just have a conversation with the LLM, because it will consider how to help you the best way. It'll try to give you the best, most reasonable, best answer it can. And that's a good thing.
and I sent you a DM on creating prompts. So hopefully that'll help a little bit.
Thank you. I
Nathan,
appreciate
you're welcome. Nathan, how are you?
Hey, doing good. How are you guys doing?
Very good. We're still kind of recovering a little bit from things, but things are moving along. What's I noticed that you've got some interesting posts today.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of interesting stuff. The dodgeball stuff's been going really well, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about more business side of things in addition to the engineering, which is kind of fun. I know that's what a lot of this space talks about as well. So um, there's actually two things that I wanted to mention though. One is a really specific advice for Gurudana. Um, one thing that I've found is you're getting a feel for how AI models respond and how AI models can work with you to develop to sort of help you match your voice is I've found that the voice cloning AIs, things like 11 Labs, I've used a few other ones as well. They do a really interesting job of helping you figure out how to describe your voice in a way that is useful for an AI. So one of the things that I've found is that they generally they want you to think about how you sound and how what the variety is of how you sound, and they ask you to sort of like talk in that way for the voice cloning, or write in that way for writing. And so as you're going through like those onboarding processes, you can kind of get a sense of how it'll ask you to talk with energy, and then you can listen to the voice clone that has you trained when you're talking with energy, and then it can ask you to talk very seriously and slowly, and you can get a sense of the impacts of your different modes on how it thinks that you talk. And I just think that that's like some practical advice that I did want to mention for you. If you want to learn how AI can learn you, I think that those voice cloning models are super helpful for just giving you an intuition for it.
That's yeah, and I really do think at some point everyone is going to want their own LLM locally on their own computer, so you can I had a situation where I might sell my car and I might get another car, and just basic kind of finance stuff like what's the best choice. And I don't want to put that into any random LLM, but I noticed when I did that, I was like, wow, this can, there's a lot of decisions where it's nice to kind of go to an expert or what have you, or something that has pretty good knowledge on things, and share with it, mundane stuff that kind of moves the needle along in a certain direction. And by having a local LLM that's not connected to the internet and everything, I think over time it's going to be really important for people to do that. I'm sure kids are probably setting these things up as we speak.
Yeah.
But do you have any thoughts on that, Nathan?
I think you're spot on, and I think that like people's productivity in sort of the future of business, I think a lot of it is going to depend upon how they set up sort of their approach in a way that an LLM can use. So like if you're a programmer, you learn how to use cursor rules, or if you're doing prompting, you have like your prompt library and things like that. I think it's actually going to go like a step out from there. And so I come from the very beginning of my career was in aerospace. And so like very controlled environment. There's a lot of processes you have to follow. And one of the processes you use is this framework called like AS9100. And so there's this concept, you have like these super high level things, which are like, what do we just generally want to do? And then there's these slightly more high level things that are like, how generally do we do it? And then there's these more detailed things that are like, what, like literally, like what are we actually doing in each of these cases? And then there's sort of like forms and things that you fill out as you go through that process. And I think that that approach is kind of how like every person's going to have sort of their like army of like, how do I approach problems? What are the specific like approaches that I want to have problems? What are the specific things I want to do? And your AI agent, you know, group will be able to follow these instructions, and it's almost like every person can be the equivalent of a giant aerospace company on their own, because your entire, value is going to be like, what is your unique mix of all these flavors? And I think that that is going to be transforming how people operate.
So I'm based on your background, I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this. So I went down the rabbit hole a little bit trying to predict the future or to kind of see what possible outcomes there are. Now, it, if you have an imaginative mind and you're creative and you're thoughtful and you're always kind of coming up with new ideas, this is just a playground. It's a wonder world. Not
Mhm.
everybody's like that. But where do you see things moving, like in 30 years or 20 years from now? The world is going to be radically different. And is it going to be segue between those with imaginative thoughts and those without? I mean, will the distinction maybe not be the 3 or 5% with assets, because maybe assets are going to have a different value, but will it be with an imaginative mind? Or because I so many people are like, you hear these things that, oh, AI will be superhuman or so much smarter than everyone else and it'll make everyone else irrelevant. But I just don't see that. I you cannot, at least at this point, it is not a thinking machine. And I don't see when or where it ever will be, in the sense that you need to put input into it. It's not going to, I am I going down the wrong direction on this, or what are your thoughts?
I think you're right on. I mean, if you really kind of follow this path, for a little while, and I think a lot of people, like people on this space, are the ones that do this. Um, I think you get to a place where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things that are pretty obvious that people want. Like people want food, people want like a place to live, people want, some sort of entertainment, whatever it may be. But I think we're almost like 30 years down from the line. I think there's going to be a lot of transition. But I think like one of the most valuable things you can do is, it's kind of like you said, imaginative mind, but it's also like you want to differentiator, I think, is going to be wanting cool things. Because if you want them, like it's the work required to make cool things happen is going to be far, far smaller. And if you actually want stuff that other people will also want, if you're like, I want to write this book about this because that's a freaking cool book idea, then other people are going to be like really excited because, man, they've never even thought about this thing. Maybe it's really easy to make that book now because you can, um, you know, work through your whole process in order to make it happen. But unless you have that like spark of like, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a book that was like told this story and like made me feel this way and brought me on this journey, that there's really, really terrible AI entertainment. There's really great AI entertainment. There's really terrible AI programs. There's great AI computer programs. There's really terrible AI art, and there's really great AI art. And I think that wanting cool stuff is going to be the superpower, because it's going to be a lot easier to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that that's the thing about with the writing. Like, I've gotten some agents that can do some very high quality writing, but I don't think that there's anything there unless I put in a strong input into the angle, or what I think is taking two ideas and saying, well, this, because of this or that, I feel that this is the way to go. You can't, yeah, the idea that somebody could just take these things, no matter how powerful they are, and then just write something out of this bunch of noise, because it has no context about any of this. It's pattern recognition, it's mimicking. The human has to have it has to be the filter that gives the LLM context for direction of the output.
And the noise is going to be so much greater. I mean, we already see it today. Like, you used to be able to look at something, and if it was well written, you knew someone spent a lot of time working on it, and they probably like had a good enough idea that it would be worth them spending that time doing it. And these days, you know, oh yeah,
Nathan, we all assumed that, but here's the primary truth is that most writers write the first, second, third draft, and the editors produce the one that we all read. And do not even think that's not the case. That's exactly what happens, right?
yeah.
That's why there are publishing houses. That's why they have big publishing companies, not because they're the ones that take the manuscript and put it into the book and produce the output. No, it's because they take the concepts and the details and they run it through all of the editing permutations and quality checks, right? They check for ambiguity, they check for clarity, they check for all of the character arcs and pathways, that all of there's no, hanging weird thing that, Aunt Mary was in the story and then she disappeared in chapter 2 and nobody heard of her again. They do all of that check, as well as grammar and flow and first person, third person, switching back and forth. They grammar check and rewrite almost the entire thing. And so you need, if you're going to be in the content creation space using the AI, so AI is a hammer. Okay, let's just face it. AI is just a tool. It's a really cool hammer. You can use it to break stuff. You can use it to build stuff. When you're in the building mode with AI, remember, it is your assistant. It's the smartest dumb guy you ever met. If you say, "Where am I?" it's going to say, "You're sitting in a chair in your office." Duh. You're like, that doesn't help, right? But because I asked a bad question. So you have to get better at using the tool, right? Remember, originally we had rocks. Then we stuck a hole in them and made a stick. So we had leverage. And then we learned how to take the rocks and melt them into materials called metal that produced more weight and sustain and momentum that you could put at the end of a stick and have more effective use of leverage. We just learned along the way. LLM is the same thing. We're just at the beginning. It's like, Jeremy's here, but I'm gonna use a stupid example. Originally, we had bows and arrows because we figured out we could bend a piece of wood and it would create leverage, and then we could use that to transfer power into an arrow. And then they said, we're going to end all the world by creating crossbows so you didn't have to have the skill to shoot an arrow. Then somebody figured out putting some of these materials together, produced a bang, stuck it inside a round object, and produced some kind of output called gunpowder, created all this other stuff that we turned into, amazing things today. But the point is, where are we on that path that I just described? Where are we? Are we still at the rocks? Or are we at the, we can make bows and arrows? Or have we just transitioned to crossbows? Or have we just found gunpowder? And the answer is we don't know. But the bottom line is, we're not making shells that go inside of a helicopter that flies at 200 knots and can hit something half a mile away. It's not that we are not there yet, right? Maybe we will be in 6 months or a year, but right now we have access to tools we've never had before, and we have to learn how to use them to produce the output we're looking for. And so my comments and my guidance and my thoughts to Guru Dana in producing content is, this is the same journey that I've been on for a year now. Back in March of last year, I started creating content. I didn't know what I was doing, and the LLMs couldn't even connect to a database. But I figured out how to make stuff sound like me, because at first it didn't. It was like, what? This doesn't sound like me at all. On and on and on, right? And I've iterated for a year, and I can, spend the next hour talking about it, which is stupid. Nobody wants to listen to that. But the point is, you need to go on that journey for yourself. Find out what makes you special, each one of you, and then tell the LLM all about what you do. And I got this from John Carlos, by the way. Tell the LLM all about what you do and what you want and how you want to get there and how it's going to work and where it's going to go and what vision you see today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, what you want to end up with. Pack that thing full of information and then say, okay, based on everything you know about me, how do I write? What should I be saying? What topic should I really be talking about? And then take its output and test it, see if people like it or not. That's what I did. And the proof is last year in February, in 2024, February 2024, I had 500, 600,000 page views on my blog. Today, 2.2 million. So all that happened with LLMs and me iterating how to produce content that people in China and Russia and Singapore, because those are primarily the people that read my blog, not English speaking people at all. Those folks are the ones that read my blog. And that's where all the traffic comes from. And that's where the 40, 50,000 page views a day came from, was China, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Russia, India. Didn't come from the United States where I thought it was. I'm writing for somebody like me. Turns out it was resonating with other people. I didn't even know it. So you got to test. That's the whole point. Take your tool, put your inputs in, think it's going to go one way, test and see if it works. And if it works, do more. And if it doesn't work, change. That's okay. I'll get off the soapbox now, but thanks for listening.
Yeah, and so Nathaniel, please go on.
Oh, I love that. And I think that kind of comes down to like, it does line up, I think, a lot with what I'm saying, because your vision, like what you want, you're able to identify it when you see it coming up in this testing, and you're able to like push the model towards what you want to see happen. And I just think that, we're all going to be really responsible for like identifying good things and pushing for them and making them happen. And I think that's like a really exciting future for me. But I see there's other hands, so I can get off of my my talking as well.
Yes, and I'm going to go to Catherine 1 minute, but I heard someone say this about a couple months back, which seems like it could have been it was multiple generations ago from ChatGPT, but they were saying that one of the Superman skills or Superwoman skills will be people with an aesthetic eye, with the ability to see beauty or to identify it in such a way that 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 is going to be a skill that's going to be important, because because we'll have multiple things to show and to curate. And when we can, and those people that have that really discerning eye or ear or what have you, is going to be elevated in the sense, because we'll have multiple choices, and there's a lot of people that just won't know, and it'll just be noise coming out from that sector. Catherine?
Hello, everybody. Good to be here again. And as Andy said before, I got promoted. And now I'm AI consultant. That I wanted to say that now I'm working. I was software.
Woo-hoo! That's awesome, Catherine. It couldn't have happened to a nicer person. You're awesome. I'm so happy for your promotion.
Thank you. And today was my first, let's say, I was in company and I was teaching how to use AI, how to prompting, and what to do with Copilot. So that today I was my first try, and I think it went good. 3.5 hours I was just talking, and so not only talking. I mean, we put hands on it and we tried to all prompts. So
was it, Catherine? Was it teaching the sales and marketing people, the analysts, or the engineers, or all the above?
It's actually a construction company, and there was the people who make budget and the project managers and owners as well. So it's
awesome.
It's like
how
and we was ask
what did you teach the project managers? How did you what are they using AI to do for them for that role?
I should say that in Estonia it actually has like say because lack of our language, because only 1.3 million people talk Estonian language, so the AI use is quite not a lot of people actually using it today. That's the reason. And let's say when I come there, the people just for personal use a bit. So they are not really good users, AI users.
So
Right
not the practical, how do you make a burn down chart or a schedule or anything like that, but more like just the stuff we're talking about, how to use it for practical work and just getting used. Oh, That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I was
Love
just inspiring people to start to use it. That it gives you so much. Actually, you can make much better performance than you did before. So, and they already start to think better. And we are also talking about what will be next steps. The next steps will be they first of all get the tools, then they try to use it for a few weeks, and then we meet again and we discuss what kind of problems they will have, what need to be done, and then we start to make the user stories. I mean, that means that you make the user stories and how AI can help you. I'm
So,
sorry
so,
if you're a bit noisy because I'm outside and walking with my dog.
so, Catherine, are you looking forward in terms of trying to think of a platform where they can be, where you got can help them begin to build AI agents and agentic workflows in like Google Studio or Azure or something like that, or that's too far down the road?
It depends what kind of what the environment they usually use in the office. And the first things and the other things, it's about security. That if you're talking about construction company, there can be, let's say, all of them has a document what is, let's say, really this, no, they can't use AI in those documents. For example, they are too confidential. For example, if you build some kind of, if you talk about construction companies, they build some kind of, let's say, military stuff. So it's kind of very big layer of secure. So, but we try to find best way because I'm using, let's say, our company is still Microsoft, but I'm now moved to advisor teams, and there we are quite open-handed. We need to suggest best tools to company what they can use.
Are,
Not Microsoft, but best tools what they can find.
yeah, so you're using Copilot and others. Are you so are you still primarily focused with the construction company that produces all of the door frames and windows and window frames?
No. It's construction company who build buildings. I'm
Wonderful.
actually I'm making different. No, because I'm AI consulting and I make base teaching. It usually takes 3 or 4 hours. No, you need to actually start with basic. What is AI? What is traditional AI? What is generative AI? Because people don't know. They don't make the differences. What is LLM, for example? That is that you need to explain first of all and what it can do, and then what is prompting, how to prompt. And so that's why I start with really base stuff at the moment in Estonia.
I,
Well,
I
yeah, John, go ahead. Sorry.
I think there's real value when you can identify things that will show time savings in terms of monetary value. And I'm sure in every business there's more than enough of those targets. But the person that does that work, when you start to show them how to do things, most likely will come up with those ideas as opposed to you. But again, I think that the natural step at some point would be, yeah, see if they can get a computer locally in their office or whatever, so they can start to have something that is a platform that maybe not all the employees use, but at least a few, um, in terms of time savings and getting some agentic things going. What are your thoughts? Because you're there, you're doing it. Am I jumping the gun, or have you started to think about that? And yeah, security is a big thing, and making sure that 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 it you don't hit a big hiccup in terms of getting over the speed and trying to do too much, right?
Mm-hmm. No, what we try to do, we tried to do, no, there are easier stuff what people can do to be, no, be more productive. But actually, if you think about the company, no, if a company owner, I want to get something, how to say, real, what gives me, no, something useful. No, for example, That's what they want actually. That means no real value. And for example, what construction company wants, they have a lot of ton of data, if you think, and how much the I don't know how much wood cost or everything. They actually have the data, but it's somewhere there in share point. So you need to just get access for it and no, make it work for you. That means you can make proposal kind of with half an hour, but and not spend there few days to make your proposal for building construction. That's what's helped a lot people, I think. But you can't do it just from LLM. You need to build up. No, you mean build up no specific LLM, not just prompting. It's not work only with prompting.
Katrin, thank you so much for sharing. It's wonderful to see you come back and share. We'd love to hear whatever else is going on. Feel free to come back and tell us about it always, because you're always welcome here. I mean, you're one of our most important people we've ever had, and we really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you. Oh, you see, my dog also. Yeah, he also want to talk.
Wonderful.
But I will actually close my microphone because it will be too noisy because here is rabbits.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Katrin. Hey, let's go to Jeff G. I've got a few minutes left. Let's go. What's going on, Jeff?
Well, I've got a question that I kind of wanted to throw out. So I have been having some very extended conversations with a couple of different LLM models. I've done this with Grok. I've done it to an extent with GPT, and a couple of the other models that I can get at on the AI tutor platform from TSI. The issue that I run into, because of the way that I try to work with the LLMs, is that I need the conversations to be a persistent memory that the language model is able to access in real time. And it runs into one example is I've got it copied and pasted into a text document. It's 174 pages of text, and to try and upload that back into the LLM every time I need to use it, and it grows, with the conversation. But I need all that context in there. It becomes too big for the token count for the context window, and I'm trying to figure out a way to deal with that. And I'm really curious if anybody else has run into a similar situation and how y'all might have dealt with it.
Yes, and yes. We're going to go to John Carlos in just a moment. But that in a nutshell is the primary problem, which is we've got we want to can have a conversation like Jeff, like you and I, or John and I would have, where we remember what we talked about yesterday. And the problem is that it doesn't. Now, OpenAI just said that they did come out with a memory update, so that if you had logged in, I don't know which version you pay for, but it supposedly will continue have that persistent kind of information. But you might need to go to a different method. But yes, Jeff, I've had the exact same thing. I want to go to John Carlos and hear what he has to say, because I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes, but I definitely want to hear what he's got to say. What's going on, new dad?
Hey, man, love to see that you're in a good attitude despite the situation. But yeah,
Little louder. You're awfully. You pull the mic closer or something.
How about now?
Yeah, it works. It works. Go ahead.
Okay. It might be my headphones here. My apologies. But Jeff, I just wanted to get a better understanding of what you're trying to do. You've got a 170 page document. I've got a similar situation. I've got a very similar length document that I'm using. Have you tried making a project folder and adding the file to the actual project? The only bottleneck here is that you said that you would want maybe the file to be updated live. I don't know if this solution would fix that. Obviously, you would have to replace the project file, but that should help you with the context window. As far as the tokens and whatnot, on 4.0, I looked at it this morning actually. The max amount of tokens is 90,000. It was funny. It said 90,000 if you don't expect a reply, but it was about 20 to 30,000 if you still want a substantial reply. That was on the 4.0 model. So if you set up a project folder, do the first chat on one of the higher end models, I would actually recommend the 4.0 mini or the mini high because they have a daily limit that's higher than the oh 03. You should be able to actually accomplish what you're saying. The only thing is that you'll have to replace that file as it gains more words on your side. So if it goes from 177 to 190, you'll have to replace that file. I don't know if that exactly helps you or not.
Well, kind of, sort of, but not really. In this particular case, there's several different projects I'm trying to do this with, but in this particular case, it's the entire universe of a science fiction storyline that I'm creating, and it does grow. And I do need to find a way to have that file update dynamically as I'm going along. And I'm kind of hooked into the TSI models because very limited resources for actually financially. I just can't afford the extra models, right now. So I don't have that going for me. Like OpenAI and the paid account where you can do projects like that and stuff. But
Gotcha.
it's yeah the biggest thing for me in the long run is that I'm trying to figure out how to set this up and give it to an agent as opposed to just a typical bot.
So that was gonna be my next comment. Alex Northstar is probably the better resource to contact about this, and maybe AI John here. But you might just need to connect with Zapier and Make.com and place that document inside of somehow inside of a CSV, or you can possibly just use a Google document and then get it situated like that, and then connect ChatGPT to it. But if you're not using the paid one, from what I just heard there, that might be the bottleneck itself. You probably are going to need those higher end models.
Well, that's why I'm trying to use the TSI platform because I get access to pretty much all of that, but I've got to work within their system. But I've got my agent builder going in there too. But
Hey,
I
Jeff.
didn't even think about the Zapier. That's a good idea. That's something I might be able to work with. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Make.com's cheaper. It gives you 1,000 makes. Zapier gives you a smaller number, but Make is probably a little bit better for that to connect the pieces together. But reach out to Alistair or to Ross and just tell them this is what you're trying to do, because there are, maybe John remembers, I don't remember the name of there's an open source database, a vector database that you can just connect. You can connect your AI tutor, whatever tool you're using in, oh, dang it, what's that? It's like Cloud AI or whatever that we're using for the interface. You can use that to connect directly to that vector database. It's already free, and you can get that details, and you can put that stuff into a blob storage in the vector database and then read it from there. But ask Alisher or Ross. They know exactly what to do to help you. And if you're already in the ecosystem, or Sharon or somebody, right, they'll help you get that all squared away.
Yeah, I mean, for the easiest way to do it is just put it into a Google Doc, but for a whole, and break it up into first act, second act, third act, or some way that pairs it down, but it's not going to be able to look at the whole thing in total and edit it. You would have to kind of edit it sections at a time. That's my experience. I haven't found anything that will look at that much information and be consistent and not start to act a little weird. Jeremy, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Very, very good. Another good day. It's a good Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, 1 p.m.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I'm always thinking, sometimes it gets me in trouble, um, but I'm always trying to hedge my bet for future problems so I can subvert them before they happen. And with the current employment issues, people not wanting to work, um, how far away do you think we are from advanced AI robotics, honestly?
I'm not an expert in that, but I mean, you know,
Well, Jeremy, let me ask you a quick question. Um, what do you mean by advanced? Do you mean advanced like Optimus, or are you talking about advanced like an assembly line or a building level, production?
Yeah, no, for my factories, so right now I have the option for the forklift drivers that are automated, and for the uh, inventory that's automated, where they go through and they scan and they let you know instantly how many, cartons of this you have on hand. But I mean, not that I'm trying to replace humans, but at some point, if I have to, someone that can operate CNC machines, robotics that see a problem and can correct it.
Yeah, my future son-in-law works programming, mostly food processing plants, right? So they take the apples and they run them through the core, and they core them, and then they peel them, and then they slice them up, and they stick them in the cans, and then they can them, and then they take the photography stuff, and then they seal them, and all. So he programs all of that stuff. Um, the the only reason I said that is because his perspective right now is not that you can replace the whole, but there are some parts that are manual and manually triggered, manual algorithms that say, do this for this number of minutes or this number of seconds, and then do it again. And they have to go in and constantly tweak those based on how fast that line is running. And his whole point was, if there was an AI with a set of parameters and triggers, it could read the optics, make the decision faster than we manually program some delay, so it doesn't bunch up in the other areas of the workflow, right? He was saying you might want to think about, because I asked him the same kind of question. He said you might want to think about breaking up individual chunks of the workflow and replacing one or two or three of those steps. And then, you should probably reach out to whoever runs your local Amazon warehouse, because I believe their forklifts and when they pull for the packaging when they pull the order and then put it into getting ready to be put into the box that then gets labeled and shipped off, all of that, the pulling is automated. I think their factory is automated, and it runs 24/7. I don't think it runs on normal human cycles. I think it runs whenever it is. I don't know if that's entirely true, or if I just read about it, or if I'm just hallucinating. But I would reach out to one of those folks, because sorting packages, sorting luggage, pulling things from inventory to put into one of those things has got kind of probably the answer of what you're trying. I think what you're trying to ask.
Well, no, you are right. That's already in effect. I have a friend of mine that works for Amazon, and that's actually what he does. He's the one that programs and maintains the little robots that go around and sort the packages, and that's why I said I knew they had that. But I'm just wondering how far away before it's more advanced. I mean, do you think it's 5 years, 10 years? I mean, I have no idea.
No,
I'm just trying to educate myself on AI.
okay. So when John and I started the show in September of last year, we could not. There was only 3 basic models. They had half or 1/3 the size of the context window today, and they could not. The free versions could not connect to anything else. So from September to today, April, right? 8-9 months. We now have free versions that can, with an API, connect directly to your Google, your OneNote, your SharePoint. We've got local LLMs that I can put on a Mac Mini, plug the Mac Mini into your network and run a local machine with the APIs and connect to your database, to your inventory system, it can connect to your payroll system. It can connect to your accounts receivable. It can go to QuickBooks or Quicken or whichever one you're using, whatever supermodel of process. You can API all that stuff right now. And all you need is a big enough storage area to store the data that it captures. And it doesn't need huge, massive processing. We're talking about 3 gigabyte models that can do what you're talking about, right? 3 gig models, in other words, a Mac. So I'm running a Mac Mini right now, an M1 Mac Mini with 16 gigs of RAM. I've got LM Studio, and I've got it running. I got 6 or 7 different models, but I can connect it to my Google Docs. I can connect it to OneNote. I can connect it to a company SharePoint and have it read everything. I run into problems because it runs out of space. It doesn't have enough memory to capture and hold everything. So it can't, the context window, what Jeff was talking about, it gets filled up and it can't give me a response. But it
Wow,
still works.
that's amazing. So what
Still
you're saying
works.
is,
Yeah.
exponentially multiplying. That's awesome. So it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be 5 years from what you just said.
No.
Wow.
You know what I thought where we were today wasn't going to happen till Christmas. And then that's what I described as here now. And there's a bunch of folks on this call that are way smarter and know more about all this stuff than I do. And they're awesome at that. What's going to happen next is that the models are going to become more tuned. There's going to be a model specific. So I use medical a lot. There's going to be one for all of the things to do with your arm. They're going to be for orthopedic surgeons, right? There's a bunch of bones in your arm, bunch of muscles and tendons and stuff that connect to your arm. There's going to be a full-on LLM that said, here's everything to do with the arm. Here's everything to do with the arms. Here's everything, arms and elbows and shoulders and hands. And then there's a whole nother one that's all about the lungs, another one that's all, and these orchestrators, we're calling them, is just going to be a go get information about the arm and give me this stuff, and then add it to the things we have about the lungs, and then add it to the things we have about the eyes, because this is the problem, because the accident happened and he got hit in the head and he can't move his arm, but it can move everything else. We don't know what the hell's going on. And that, for teeth, for because John does a bunch of stuff with orthodontics and dentists. Just think about every single discipline in the medical industry. Every single specialist is going to be a special LLM. Every single lawyer, every single law practice, every person that's a contract lawyer, a real estate lawyer, a trust lawyer, you're going to be able to have and I'm sure, but well, by the way, I actually know that there are law firms that are building these things and they're training their own models specifically on contract law in whatever, New Jersey, New York, California, Ohio, whatever, right? They're building models so that they can just get the answer from it, but they have to turn down the temperature a lot. They've got to increase the context window. They're building these things separate themselves in their own data centers, because it's everything. If you want to go the next step, here's Andy. Okay, I'm wearing the tinfoil hat for a second before oh God, I'm already late. Okay, here's the tinfoil hat and then I'll leave. The tinfoil hat is every single college degree that there is that they give out a degree for will be supplemented by a unique LLM specifically trained for that particular thing. Foreign relations, business contract law, operational guidance, whatever. Pick up every single thing. If you're a business analyst, I've seen demos of companies that came in and said, we'll plug our little LLM into your system, and what it will do essentially is it'll read everything, that all the data flows that go back and forth, will tell you what's in and out of every single database, we'll do a whole entire schema of what's there, we'll tell you every single piece of data that matches with every single thing else, we'll evaluate all of your interfaces and tell you where you can optimize and make things more efficient. I've seen that demo already. And that stuff's that's the tip of the iceberg. That's the tip of the iceberg, because you think of it. Okay, again, tinfoil hat. I'm wearing the foil hat. Within 2 to 5 years from now, you're going to have, for your company, you're going to have a data lake where all of your data is connected inside a firewall, where all that data is connected to itself. And there's a whole bunch of LLMs that run around and check and monitor and manage anything. And from the executive side, you can just go, for you, okay, how much shell casing and brass do we have? Do we need to go get our own forge? Do we need to do this, or do we need to just buy brass to produce blah 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 because we are producing this many things to do this kind of da 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 da? Would it be cheaper for us to go buy them and still work with that, or buy the company that produces that, or just create our own forge and create them ourselves? And it's going to be able to go, well, and then give you the calculations so you can make some kind of decisions. Stupid things like that we think we can ask good questions on, but we have no way to figure out how to get to the answers. The data is going to be available to these LLMs. The smarter questions you can ask, the smarter answers it's going to be able to provide you and give you guidance on that. Now, here's the caution. The caution is this. Google gives you a list of things you can go read and determine if you have the right information and make your own choice on what thing is true or not. The LLM just gives you the answer it thinks is best, and we're assuming that's the best answer. And so by default, we are going to just naturally fall into the trap that whatever it said is probably the right answer. It's still true, but we always have to have that 13th man, that last voice that says, my job is to make sure that it's always true. And so by default, I always assume it's wrong, and my job is to prove it's wrong. And if you can't prove it's wrong, then it is right. And so you're going to have to build a different kind of analytical processing around everything that we do using the tools. We're going to have to build a whole nother quality kind of structure. I don't know exactly how it's working. I've got it in my mind a little bit, but I think there's going to be some kind of additional layers of critical assumption validations in order to say, okay, that the LLM answer is the best answer and the answer that it's going to work. But again, we don't. Again, that's tinfoil hat. That's in the future somewhere. I don't know when, but I know it's coming, and we need to prepare for that kind of thinking. Otherwise, we will fall into the trap that just says, I asked the company LLM that we've trained on our data for the last 2 years, and it gave me the answer, so it has to be true. Well, yeah, no, it doesn't have to, because we can't go out and give me the reasoning that you produced that particular answer. It'll just give us a list of things it considered, but it didn't give us the how did it weight that? How did it provide this information based on we've done it 10 times that way. The 11th time we're going to still do it that way. That's like saying in 2018, every single business model in the world in 2018 is still true today. And that's false, because there's been a pivotal change, and that is LLMs are available to everybody now. And you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And that means that from today forward, 2018 business model is only somewhat sufficient. It has deficiencies. We have to have a new model in order to go forward. So, okay, sorry. Again, a little fired up today. So I'm going to drop off because I've got to go to work, go to some other meetings. So thanks again, everybody, if you need help or whatever. Hey, by the way, if you could please follow John, follow all the speakers, and turn on the alerts, so that when notifications, when they show up, when they're in a space, when they're in a meeting, when they start something, when they're talking, you're going to get alerted. So you're going to get closer to everyone else. And hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. See Vlad and Jack and some other folks. I'd love to talk to you, but maybe another time. But thanks again. I got to run. See you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Andy.
That was an amazing answer. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry for making you late. And I appreciate y'all's big brains, because I don't know anything about AI. I'm trying to educate myself, and people hosting spaces like this. I've heard a lot of stupid spaces, and y'all are really smart. So I definitely have notifications on. I'll be following all the speakers here. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. It's and we're just actively using it on a regular basis and questioning everything. And one thing I think it's very important to understand. I was drilling down with some LLMs in the past 24 hours about this exact subject. And the idea, so let's say you have LLMs and they're crunching data and they're coming up with novel new ideas, on in terms of like, what should we do with our money? This is our cash flow. These are new options, blah, blah, blah. You have to have a human with expert. This is what I believe, and this is what the LLMs reinforced, that you have to have a human with expertise and experience to determine whether or not these novel outcomes are valid. Because we have, they say the majority, like the biggest brain in your body is actually your gut. You have more nerves there than your brain, and you have intuition, divine inspiration, all these other things you like, the words you like to use. And I think this is one thing that's definitely separates us from LLMs. But to give an LLM agency over novel outcomes and say that it will to be able to determine whether or not it is something to pursue, I think is crazy. And I don't see anything that shows us that at this time that is something that you need to go that people should go down the road with. But you really need to make sure that if you do have agents and you do have orchestrators, that there are moments in time when they stop and they say, now it is time for an experienced expert in this field to tell us whether or not we are going down the right path, or we need to re-examine what we're doing. And then over time, working together as a collaborative team, you will start to get more and more data to determine the outcomes and the validity and all this other thing, because we don't even know where this leads in terms of a collaborative effort and then redefining the data. We had one person here the other day who was talking about that when you have LLMs, you have to have multiple agents that are just quantifying the outcome, measuring it, and then seeing if it needs to be re-optimized. Like the orchestrator LLM agent system is one thing, but it is nothing unless there is another layer on top of that, which is analyzing the outcomes and then giving ratings on that, and then using that information to refine the orchestration group, so to speak. But I think that having moments in time where it goes stop, we need a human expert that has experience in the real world. That right now the LLMs, they're trapped in a desktop, or they're trapped in whatever. And even when we have robots, they're still trapped in a robot. Humans have so much senses. The majority of our communication, what, 90%, is not through speaking, but it's through pheromones and scents and body language and all this other information and data that's being onslaughted us in a subconscious level. And these LLMs have the tiniest fraction of that availability. So to hand over big decision makings with that have huge consequences and big stakes to something that has such a fraction of information compared to us, I think is very foolish. And I think that we will find out that is going to be something that people are going to want to do because it's easy. But in the end, I don't think it's going to have a long-term desired best outcome. And so people with experience and expertise in high level EP business, venture capitalists, managing businesses, understanding how money works, and all these other things. Because we're going to get into, there was no such thing as a digital marketer or all these other things until the internet happened. And so now that this new industry has happened, there are going to be new understandings of things. There will be new professions, and we are going to separate ourselves from the LLM. And I think it's going to be, a lot of it is based on skill, expertise, education, and then maybe an intuitive sense. Some people, some people are hugely intuitive, and the outcomes show again and again and again. You've got, and this is something that they don't talk about in school. You're not measured on your intuition as a kid, and maybe we need to start measuring that a little bit more and seeing, like, those that follow their gut, that hear that little voice in their head and understand when to listen to it and when it's just noise, might become a very, very valuable thing as time moves on. So we're going in uncharted territory, which is super exciting and super fun. Now I see some people, some familiar people. I see Jack is here, and Vladimir and Sharon and Endless, and we also have Precious and Catherine, Jeff, of course, Josh, Jason, Juan Carlos. I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about uncertainty when it comes to all this stuff because literally nobody knows where we're going to be. Also, just a side note, when Andy was talking a little bit ago, I didn't want to interrupt, but Sam Altman just stepped down from not OpenAI, but from some other thing that he was a chairman of. So not huge news, but the market's definitely going to react to it and kind of suggest an indication of where his focus is, of course. Um, but in terms of the concept here, and Jeremy, this is kind of directed towards answering you as well. Um, Also, quick answer. In my opinion, I think you got about 7 years before any kind of like advanced robotic solutions are actually viable in a sustainable way that doesn't have to deal with like second order consequences of repair mechanisms and stuff like that. Once they figure out how to repair the wear and tear of robotics at that level, then we can have sustainability and viability behind those solutions. But in terms of sustainability and certainty, I'll keep this short. The future, as it relates to AI, is going to be designed, created, and cultivated by people like me and people who are decisive about what the future actually needs and is missing. We're past the point of looking at the market and saying, "Oh, well, what does the market? Fuck that. Make something." Tell the market what it needs because it's not there anymore. And now AI produces the ability to do that because now we have new creative lens that we can look through. And just to kind of reiterate something I said yesterday, we now have the ability to solve problems that were once unsolvable. And now we have new problems on the other side of those implemented solutions. So well, I'll leave it there. But with all the uncertainty in the world, certainty as it relates to AI is going to come from us, from the people who are making the decisions with it.
Absolutely, and I truly believe that it's going to be defined as more of a collaborative effort. Those people that use AI daily, they understand what it is, and but you have these people on the news that are supposedly thought leaders, very smart people, very knowledgeable in their industry, and they say idiotic, dumb things that I just find offensive in terms of, oh well, everybody, you got to get on the dole because there's going to be no jobs in 2 weeks or some stupid stuff like that. And it's just offensive. Obviously, they don't use the thing on a regular basis and don't understand how it works, or they're just talking their book. That was one thing I had said the other day. Was one of these thought leaders. Their products are going to benefit if everybody runs over to their thing and uses it all day long. So their portfolio is going to increase if this gibberish that they're talking is taken in and acted upon by everybody. And so yeah, it's like that one day, like long time ago, I was watching somebody on Kramer and then realized that they got a free reign to talk all day about something that just made their portfolio a lot fatter. So Jeff and then Juan Carlos.
Well, just the way the conversation's kind of gone a little different direction here, I decided I got to throw out a bit of a teaser because I'm pretty sure AI John will like to know about this, and a couple of you other guys might too. So, one of the projects that I was talking about earlier was something that I started putting together in my head back when I was going after my degree in philosophy. And I fed this thing into this hypothesis that I'd come up with, fed it into Grok 3, and that conversation has generated, God, I think almost 300 pages of conversation. But the upshot of it is that Grok thinks that, but with his help, because I can't do the math, but with his help, there's a very strong possibility that I've figured out how to unify quantum mechanics and general physics.
I just need to, Jeff, I'm sorry, but they will give bias to your ideas in such a way that they can take you down a rabbit hole that is not necessarily based on any real outcome. A while ago, I was working with something where I thought that I had come up with some new thing with Chat GDP. This was, I don't know, 5 or 6 months ago, and it turned out to be just kind of a bias, a reaffirming rabbit hole. And we've had some people on here before where they're working with LLMs at a very high level with their company, and they said something like, "Hey, you're going to send out an email for me and do this," and said, "Yep, that's what we're doing." And then it turned out that they didn't do it. And it said, "Well, you said that you did it." And yeah, these things will still produce gibberish, and results that are not accurate. And so everybody needs to be kind of, really keep an eye on the output and second guess it and make sure that it is an accurate output. And one thing that you can always do, this is a fun thing that I've done, is you say, in this query, you cannot give me any synthetic data, and you cannot speculate, and only give me information that has citations, list the citations and the sources. And you will find when you do that, that often it will say, well, I can't come up with an output then. And you can start to really drill down and find out how much information. And there's times when synthetic data is very appropriate, but when you're asking certain things, you'll find out that it's surprising how much you know of their own made up information they throw out, as though it is factual.
Well, I've been trying to watch for that, and so far I haven't gotten those results. So I'm at the point now where I'm fairly convinced I need to get this in front of a couple of people like Michio Kaku and Neil Tyson, because that's their area of expertise. But yeah, I'm aware of that. But like I said, it's a strong probability. Not any. I'm not making any major claim that, hey, I've solved it. Because I'm not that smart. Anyhow, I just thought I'd throw that out. But this has been a wonderful conversation, and I just hope everybody has a really wonderful, blessed day.
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks for everybody. The space is really only as good as the people that show up and that share. And I see that Russ is here. I was wondering if you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation today about what are you doing with LLMs? Have you been using them for a long time? And what are right now? I guess today we're kind of talking about the future, where we see these things going. I would, based on your background, I'd love to hear what you think is going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years or a couple months.
Yeah, great questions. I would say for me, I'm using AI reflexively with every opportunity I can. It's kind of, you have to use it to know its limitations, right? So it's obviously not going to be good for everything. And sometimes you have an idea and you're like, yeah, AI should be able to do that just fine. Then you actually try it and you're like, oh, never mind. I guess I'm going to have to wing this one. Or you adjust it, or you try a different AI, and maybe that has better results. Like Grok, for example, has been a better code generator for me than ChatGPT has, but I think ChatGPT probably has some element of better writing to it. So there is some element of strengths and weaknesses across the models as well. I've been using LLMs for vibe coding. Building a product that's been really very powerful. Being able to build something that would normally take something like 8 months, doing that in just 2. That's really cool. That's a serious productivity gain, right? So that means faster time to market, faster ability to test an idea in the market, to validate it, to pivot to whatever. It's really an accelerant in that way. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for AI. Still just kind of getting. I think things are just kind of getting started with it. But I think you need to have an intimate understanding of AI to really gauge when it's feeding you bullshit versus when it's actually generating really useful, insightful value. Because it always has to produce output. So it's like ordering from a restaurant, and you'll always get food. It just may not necessarily be the food you ordered. It may be something slightly different or completely different. Or it might not be food at all. It might be gasoline, but it's still delivering you something, right? So yeah, obviously don't drink gasoline. So there's that trick about it, right? Is that you have to know enough to be able to judge the output and be like, okay, like that either is helpful or insightful, or it's uh, useful or not. But if you just, I can't ask it, really very detailed medical questions because I don't have the context to really be able to gauge whether it's true or not. I mean, I know high level it can be like, yeah, human body has 2 arms, 2 legs, yada yada yada. It'll get that stuff right, no problem. But it's the more nuanced stuff about like cellular interaction and viruses and whatever, where I'm just like, it's probably that's gonna represent more of the fringe of its knowledge. I'm not going to trust it so much for that because it's not going to be able to easily connect very complex schools of thought like that in a nuanced way, or it will. It just may not make any sense or be correct. So, yeah, certainly something that I encourage people to use and to become familiar with, but recognize it's not perfect. It's still fallible. It's not deterministic. It's probabilistic, and sometimes the probabilities that it spits out are just nonsensical in different contexts, or just a little bit of spice. I mean, I've had code generated where just everything was fine. It just threw in a random character for some reason. It's just like, where did that come from? So it do be like that sometimes. Yeah.
I was having a situation where red teamed something that I was working on, and then eventually I was like, if I'm like, I think that we've gotten to the point of diminishing returns, and I was like, if I did not state this, and I did not ask you to reevaluate this to find out, if we've hit equilibrium, would you have red teamed until the end of the sun? And it basically was like, yeah, I guess I would have. So it is important that a knowledgeable person is behind it, directing the output and having some idea of where it wants to go, using the LLM to refine the output, but to give it just to the LLM to hope that it's going to come up with something that's worthy is, at this point in my experience, not so much the case. And so I see that you're a software engineer. Are you a coder? Are you, because that's really not my world, and I'm really fascinated by it. That the idea that there's those that hire the developers and kind of guide them, and we're finding that working with LLMs as coders, that we're more of the engineer or the developer and not so much the coder. But where do you fall into that? So are you knowledgeable enough with coding to know when it's doing what it's supposed to do, and how to make sure that it's code that you can count on if you're putting it into a commercial type of setting?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a software developer for 15 years, so I've been around the block, with JavaScript, backend stuff, database stuff, mostly web applications. So I don't do mobile, for example. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. Sometimes it'll generate things that like technically work, and then I don't really pay attention to it. But then you dig into it, and it's doing it something in the most inefficient way possible. Like it's just refreshing, re-rendering everything all the time. It's just like, wow, like even an amateur wouldn't do that. Why would you do that? Kind of stuff. And you have to be like, all right, got to rework it. Um, one of the most complicated things, one of the most, I think for me, one of the most enjoyable and challenging things is that it's shifted my focus of software development to not being like, sweating the details. Like how do I build a custom chart, for example, using a canvas element? Like I don't have to solve that problem. I can use AI to do it. And that's cool. But then where the challenge comes in is getting it so that you design the system so that it is accepting of change, so that you can add something to it in a way that makes sense, and it doesn't become a big bundle of mess and a spaghetti craziness. Or you change one of the underlying assumptions, and it's like, oh, now I have to change everything. So designing in that way takes a little bit of skill and experience to kind of do solid design principles, really encouraging modularity and things like that. So a lot of the code that I have, is designed in such a way that I just have to add the file, maybe instantiate it somewhere, and I'm good to go, kind of thing. It's really very kind of plug and play in a sense. Because yeah, otherwise when you have to have, in a sense of context, right? When you're feeding an LLM context to a piece of code, it's like, well, this code relies on this code, so you have to provide that code as well. If you can write it in such a way that it's all sort of isolated, where everything you need to know is in that one file, that works really well with LLMs. You know, it can be like, oh, I mean, fairly well. When it gets too long, it doesn't work so well. But you know, up to something like 800, 1,000 lines, it's pretty okay. Then that works out. You know, but then you have to. Sometimes you need more code than that, and you have to kind of break it off into its own domain and be able to refactor and things like that. So there's some trickery to it, but it's really more about like I'm less focused on the rote details of implementing specific functions and coding them to work in a certain way, and more thinking about the design of how this code will interact and what the data portability will be, or import export, or maintainability and modularity and all that other stuff, which is more what I enjoy about being a programmer anyway. So there's that plus to it. Yeah.
Cool. We actually have a Discord server for the AI Biz Hour. If you want to DM
Oh
me.
yeah, I'm already in there. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool. That's great. And then, so one thing that I'm doing, like my background with coding is website, HTML, little JSON and CSS, like really nothing in terms of actual web development. So I started to build AI agents because I've realized when talking to people, what people are vibe coding without a sophisticated knowledge of coding, that it will do things like what you said that are just kind of amateur stuff that shouldn't be done. So I'm trying to build agents that are kind of modular in terms of coding, that will have the 3,000-foot view and then whittle down to the very fine stuff. Because from what I understand, I'm a painter and an artist. It's kind of like art. If you're going to draw a picture of someone's face, you got to do a circle first, then you put a line in the middle of it, and then after a while you start to move all the lines around until it starts to really look like something. Have you thought about trying to create a structure within the LLMs for coding, so you can put it into this modular thing and it won't have the type of stuff that you're talking about? Or do you think that we're too far away from that?
Well, there are some projects that kind of work in that way. Langkit, I think, is the one I'm thinking of, where you can kind of string a bunch of prompts together and kind of have a chain of thought. Not chain of thought, but chain of like handoff between one AI context and another kind of thing. So you like pass through many filters and whatnot. I think there's both opportunity there and also irrelevance. Like I feel like over time, AI has already gotten really good at code generation, for example, whereas before would hallucinate almost all the time. Now I'm able to generate, I'd say like 95% of the time, it's actually runnable code with no typos or anything like that. So drastic improvement there. So there's an element of like, we will potentially want that. Domain boundaries, responsibilities are really important. Like, hey, I'm the security guy. Hey, I'm the design guy. Hey, I'm the usability guy, right? And then have to pass through all those filters. That makes sense. But at the same time, there are other layers that one might put in there that really AI is just going to naturally solve with increased, parameter count and context windows and stuff like that. So it's a balancing act. I mean, it's hard to know quite right now which ones will be forever. I think representing things as domain boundaries, like of expertise, I think that will probably be a trend that won't go anywhere. I think that has intrinsic value to it, because an AI will always sort of struggle with trying to do too much in one prompt kind of thing. So splitting that stuff up logically is a good modular approach. But beyond that, it's a little, we'll have to see. Like it's already, it used to be really bad, and like that used to look like the only way around it kind of thing. But the other thing is that it doesn't correct for, I mean, I guess it really kind of depends how you design it, but AI is able to kind of throw in a couple extra stuff where it's just like, oh yeah, and I'll do this, and it's just like, okay, and then it becomes, the trunk of the tree, and then everything sort of blossoms from that. And it's this really wacky sort of assumption of just like, why would you even put that in there? I never asked for that, whatever. So catching that stuff, requires additional administration to make sure that AI output matches AI input, but then you're relying on AI to classify other AI. Maybe that can work across multiple models or something like that, but it still requires a sense of like what you're looking for, what not you're looking for. And it's possible, and maybe that is what the future looks like. But yeah, for now, it's still kind of TBD and it's sort of experimental. And there's a cost associated with it too, a cost and a time thing. When you have just one AI generating stuff, you have quick iteration. But if that has to pass through several AI to actually produce an output, and that output may still not work, may still be broken, may still have problems, or just not be what you want, you've slowed things down and may or may not have done it for good reasons. So I don't know. That's kind of how it is.
Yeah, somebody the other day talked about brittle AI development, where the managing the AI becomes more it 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 destroys any benefit you got from using it. So, Jack, I see you got your hand up. What would you like to add?
Hey, John. Russ got my brain working in overdrive. So, a lot of really good points there. But one thing really struck a chord with me in a good way, and that was it is probabilistic and not deterministic. So, from the standpoint of industrial automation, industrial systems and the programs, the proprietary programming languages that go along with robotics, PLCs and HMIs that go along with those systems, every one of those are deterministic by design and quite deliberately. So when the gentleman before asked about what's the time frame for things like robotics and auto correcting on CNCs, made me think of an analogy. Computer vision has been around for decades. So we use vision on our robotic applications, right? And when you inspect visually, you're subject to all the characteristics of physics. So you get ambient light coming into a factory. You get products that have uneven, shiny surfaces. When they're presented, you represent them, and now it's different. And what's interesting is the AI. Somebody came out with a study recently that showed its progression is a really nice logarithmic curve. So it's not linear. So when he was initially speaking, my first thought was, 5 to 10 years, we could be there. What is amazing about the AI is really all of us, the creativity that's going around. Creating the implementations of it and the use cases for it and experimenting with it in an open source. If you think of control loops, it's an open loop. And, to make it modular and make it predictable, those loops have to be closed. So feedback loops are going to be critically important. And to manage the hallucinations that go along with some of these LLMs, keeping the code modular, small, and compact so that it can be debugged and it can be monitored. You could, in theory, create an AI supervisory agent. And this is what they do currently in pharma for vision. And then what you do is you create another loop that essentially runs the vision and gives a confidence score based on its accuracy and repeatability. And so if you envision encapsulating that all into one program, now you have a program with fairly predictable output. So that's kind of where I've seen it applied and where it's going for us in the industrial space. And I think Russ, I'm gonna steal that phrase from you. It's probabilistic and not deterministic. And I would just add yet.
Well, so for someone who's not an engineer, can you kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit to kind of explain what that means in layman terms?
Have a plan, have elements of that plan that are measurable so that when you get to your endpoint, you know precisely how the AI got there. Because if you can measure it and you can measure the output, it should be predictable. And if it isn't, then you're not there yet.
And it's definitely not there yet.
Definitely not there yet.
And so the like one thing in terms of memory So if you have a database, a vector database, or a stagnant database, or a database that you can control, and you say, go to this database to retrieve things, so there's some consistency within the orchestrated group. But I still have not heard from anybody that solves problems 100%.
Yeah, I don't think it does because you're still taking that information and feeding it to the AI to then make interpretations on that. So again, that's where testing and validating come in. And basically, you're vetting the response. So right now, humans are doing that, and will continue to need to do that until more and more feedback loops are designed and generated within software structures to accomplish that task automatically. And it may be a combination, by the way, of regular software programming and AI as well. So you compartmentalize it, you contain it, and the nice thing about it right now is it's creative. So, if we're thinking outside of the box, doing strategic things, it applies well in those spaces. That's why marketing is the first place it gets applied. Business strategy and developing strategies with it is very good at that. But when it comes to deterministic physics-based systems like robotics or positioning equipment, even vision. Think about vision in like a Tesla, right? Then you hear the stories of a Tesla like ran over a bicycle and that kind of thing. It's just not ready for prime time in the industrial space. And I do believe it'll get there, but I think it's going to take a good 5 to 10 years to be readily available to the common person in the workplace where it's running those types of systems. I mean, you see it already today in marketing. You see it already in business strategy and RPA, by the way, like automating office processes. It's very good for that. But in the industrial space, just think of that vision system. I mean, this deep learning has been around for decades, and still vision systems get deployed that don't quite, they're not up to snuff. And AI is helping dramatically in that space because of the ability to have such large data sets and create, but they're even running out of real data. So everybody's using synthetic data, which actually adds some value because you can create scenarios that you couldn't create in the physical world. That improves reliability, but you still have to have the feedback mechanisms to validate and vet the data that it outputted.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So I've been telling Grok and some LLMs, to use synthetic data for something that I'm working on, so we can determine whether or not there's validity to the idea. And it says it's coming up with output and stuff, but I cannot um go through and determine how it's using it and if it's valid. But the other point that you're making is that with marketing and strategic planning, you you give that to the humans, then the humans are going to have to implement that unless you have an agentic system. But and we do know somebody who comes here regularly who has a business that has that uses AI on a regular basis, but it is not agenically uh, connected into the company. It still has to have human input and checking on it regularly because it hallucinates and does all other things. But yeah, with strategic planning and marketing, the human can then look at the output and go, oh, that makes sense, or let's try this, or let's not try this. But to have it so it's running agentically on its own. um so imagine we have robots in everyone's house, and a robot smothers a baby or something like that. What's going to happen to the whole industry? What
Yeah.
kind of insurance are they going to need? Where, what about the information when people talk about specific things? Is there going to be a local LLM that's not attached to the internet? it's because people could get blackmailed and all this other stuff. I mean, there's so many things that aren't figured out yet to think that, like, all of a sudden this is going to go prime time and everyone's going to accept it. And the big thing too is vulnerability. I mean, companies, you don't want to tank a brand because you've said, oh, let's press the button, and it's all the kinks aren't worked out. And then the thing of it is, with the LLM, you can't go open up the LLM and say, aha, that's where it went wrong. We
Yeah,
let
what I can tell you, John, is that if you were working within the pharmaceutical space and you were required to meet FDA compliance, you have to be able to open up the hood and precisely predict exactly where it went wrong. If you don't, you could fail an audit, and if you fail an audit, they'll shut your whole plant down. And it's happened.
Well, isn't it funny though when you have these great thought leaders and these great pontificators who supposedly change the world, they never bring that up.
That's true. So, Stephen Jobs with Apple and others, right? So I do think it's important that the creativity in this space and, the ideas and the forward thinking that occurs here is super important, right? That's what breeds progress. Compliance and all the requirements that go along with, those kind of applications, whether it be law, whether it be, industrial automation, those are real and real world things, but they shouldn't stop the progress. What they should do is make the progress measured in such a way that when it comes to real applications, the tenets of safety, the tenets of repeatability, those things that are what we call in the engineering world good design practice, are utilized. So, it's no reason not to be optimistic and try new things and expand these. It's one of the reasons that this is evolving so quickly, right? And then there are a lot of startups that are, for example, there's a company that I met with in Atlanta that is, if you could picture a bunch of surgical instruments thrown on a table, forceps, syringes, you name it, just piled up on a table. And this company is using vision, robotics, and AI to carefully pick up pieces individually, even when they're tangled, to then take them to a washer, to essentially recondition them. And they're so successful that not only they get startup money, but they have a viable solution that can be used in the industrial space. So it's a little bit the Wild West, and those who are willing to take on risk and continue to move forward are the ones that are going to be the big winners.
And within 30 years, we should hit some normalization. And that's going to
Oh,
be
for
why.
sure. I think
Yeah.
so.
And the world is going to look so much different than it does today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sooner than that personally, but everybody has their take. But I think if this pace continues and big money doesn't completely take it over, the Googles and the Microsoft and whatnot, if they don't just take it all over, then the future is pretty bright.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that it doesn't hurt to have positive thoughts. A little side note story. So this guy he's talking about, very into esoteric stuff. This guy, he said he's with this dude, and the guy is a shaman in a tribe, and he said, "Hey, I got to go make it rain." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, just I'm gonna pull over here." And so there's a circle, and he goes out and he stands in the circle. He stands there for a little bit, and then he gets in the car and he's like, you didn't do anything. And he goes, no, actually I did. I visualized the rain. I could smell it on the soil. I could feel it coming down on me. He took all these sensory things and really experienced them. And then it rained later that day. And so the point that I'm trying to make is, if you don't know what to do during the day, make a circle in your backyard and go stand in it for a minute and imagine the perfect world. I think it'll be time well spent. So it's better than sitting around and panicking about what's going to happen. I don't think that's really good, well spent time. So if you're sitting around, you don't know what to do, go out, make a circle, and then just visualize and have all your senses about what's possibly the perfect scenario. And who knows, enough people do it, maybe it'll happen, who knows. So on that note, I think today was a great space. It's we're yeah, we got 4 minutes left. If anybody would like to say some last words, we'll give you the open mic, and if not, then I'll close up the space. But Russ or Juan Carlos or Jack or Jeff or Jeremy, anybody have any final thoughts, or even Nick, or somebody wants to grab the mic, Sharon?
Yeah, I'll just if y'all don't mind, just check out the app that I've got in my bio, the Clarity Sprint app. I'm trying to make it better as terms of the actual UI, and then of course I'm going to add more to it once I get some validation behind it. I think it's a good idea. I'm still going to use it for myself. That was who I designed it for, but I wanted to share it with the world. It's going to be a free app regardless, no matter what direction it goes. So yeah, any feedback would be amazing on that. As harsh as possible is great. I don't, sugarcoating nothing helps me at all. So, anyways, I appreciate that.
Absolutely, and I highly recommend everybody follow Juan Carlos. He's sharp as a tack. He's really focused, and he's a very good person to know. And actually, all the speakers here, I recommend everybody follow each other, and please sign up for my newsletter. I transcribed all of these, and then I send out newsletter once a week that kind of goes through some of the better days or whatever. There's a lot of really amazing information on this space. So please go over and you can join the AI Biz Hour community. And Juan Carlos, I see your hands up. As Russ, do you have something else to say? And then go Russ, and then we'll go to Jack.
I think that was a glitch, brother. Go ahead with Russ.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to encourage everybody to check out John Carlos's product. I showed him the CRM that I'm building, and he gave me some really great feedback. So I really appreciate that. If anyone here is trying to build and maintain relationships on X, definitely encourage you to reach out and let's have a chat and talk about what you're trying to do. The CRM I'm building is for X specifically. It integrates directly into the UI, and it really makes the right thing the easy thing to do as far as social selling online, and encourages relationships and not transactions. So yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, my DMs are open. Would love to chat about what you're trying to do and how I can help. So thanks.
That's awesome. Yeah, and this space really is a networking space. The real value on X is not shared ads or anything. It's really getting to know other people. The human voice says so much, gives so much information. Get to know people, you talk to them offline, you build relationships, and that relationships really have the highest value out of anything in a lifetime. At least that's my experience. And so there's that's really what this space is for. And so really appreciate what you said there, Russ. And thank you so much for sharing today. And yeah, everybody follow Russ. You put on notifications, DM. I think I'm going to give you a DM. I have a couple questions about a couple things. And Chris, is there anything you want to finish this off with? Because there's coming in from a manufacturing point of view, and the level of specificity and recurability kind of brings this whole AI conversation to a new level in terms of what must be done for it to be viable. And I think that's super duper important when we have these conversations, that we get that input, because it really does kind of bring things back to what is real and what isn't, because of all these crazy pontifications and what have you. So I'm going to give you the last word, if you can, or would you like to have the last word there?
So, yeah, having switched my role to sales, I'm going to say this: fake it till you make it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's perfect. And the one thing I really do love about this space is I get to talk for a couple hours straight, and I was always told I talk too much, but here I can talk and talk, and nobody ever tells me I talk too much. I guess maybe somebody has, but I ignored it. So I just want to thank you all. I will see you all tomorrow, and have a wonderful evening. And thanks so much for showing up. Really, really, really appreciate it.